Welcome to Tom's True Crime. Today we take you to Jackson, Ohio. Sunday, June 30th, 2019. In the rural town of Harlan, Kentucky, John and Betty Levinson are preparing to attend a family birthday party. Their son, Darius Gamby Levinson, and his three young boys, who reside 4 hours away in Ohio, were also supposed to travel to Kentucky to attend the family gathering. Betty called Darius on Friday, but she didn't get an answer. She didn't really worry about it because he was always busy at work and sometimes he just doesn't have the time. Then Darius' boys contacted Betty and wanted to know if she had seen their father. Betty said to them, "Well, you guys are supposed to be on your way up here." And they said they had seen their father on Friday and his cars are here, but he is not. Betty ends up texting Darius. She says, "I'm going to call the police in 5 minutes if you don't respond." Darius doesn't respond. John and Betty looked at each other. They knew right away there was a problem. John said to Betty, "Do you want me to call the sheriff?" Betty said, "Yes." Sensing something is wrong, Betty and John Levinson asked the sheriff in Jackson, Ohio to make a welfare check on 42-year-old Darius Gamby Levinson. Family events were pretty important for Darius, especially a get-together with a birthday party. His children would be able to play with a bunch of kids there, and he wouldn't miss anything like that. And if he did, he would let you know. Alarm bells went off for them. They immediately hopped in the car and took a 4-hour drive out to Darius' house because they knew something was wrong. Darius Gamby Levinson was born on the 10th of March, 1977. He enjoyed an all-American childhood. He was an easygoing person that everyone enjoys being around. He was quiet, a little shy. He wasn't particularly interested in sports, but he liked tinkering. Very technical, analytical, and curious. After graduating high school, he earned a degree in computer science from the University of Kentucky. The nature of IT work allowed Darius to travel all over the world while working. He was working in Singapore when he met 23-year-old Russian Oleska Basov. The two had an instant chemistry, and Darius was enthralled with the blonde bombshell. Oleska was traveling there, and they met at a bar. Oleska Basov was born in Russia in 1986. She is tall, beautiful, and stylish. She is generally quiet and reserved. Darius was infatuated with her. She was pretty, has a great sense of humor, and loved to travel. Oleska described Darius as nice, respectful, gentle, and she fell in love with him. The couple had a whirlwind romance, but in early 2009, Darius' work ended and so did the fun. They both go back to their respective country. She goes back to Russia, he goes back to US. But the two had fallen in love. And over the phone, Darius asked Oleska to come to America to be with him, and she agreed. He was in love, and as soon as he got back to the States, he started proceedings to get her to the U.S. And what's more, Oleska revealed news that Darius hadn't anticipated. She was pregnant. He was excited about becoming a father. It was hard on him because he was so far away. Oleska was unable to make it to the States in time for the birth of their son. Oleska delivered their first child in Russia in November of 2009. Oleska arrived in the U.S. in March 2010, and it wasn't long after that they got married and then she stayed in the U.S. Once in the States, Oleska traded in her blonde locks for her natural brown hair as she settled into her new role as an American mom. The family moved around the U.S. for the next several years and welcomed 2 more sons. In 2015, Darius was working in Cincinnati. 40 miles away in Jackson, Ohio, they found their dream home. It was a big, beautiful house on 5 acres next to a winery, a full deck in the backyard with an in-ground swimming pool. Despite outward appearances, settling in small-town Ohio wasn't an easy transition for Oleska. Oleska is lonely because she doesn't have any family support around her. Her kids were her whole life. Oleska's sense of isolation, paired with Darius's work travel, caused a rift in the marriage. That's when Darius made the decision to travel less and focus on his family. In January of 2018, Oleska convinced Darius that a trip could put the spark back into their marriage. They were having problems. Darius' parents, John and Betty, came to Jackson to babysit the kids so Oleska and Darius can go on a cruise. Joining the Levinsons was another couple, 32-year-old James Fussell and his wife. Alan worked with Darius in Cincinnati, and the two had become friends. But when the Levinsons returned from the cruise, it was clear to both Darius and Oleska that the marriage was over. In March of 2018, Darius filed for divorce. The couple agreed to do what was in the best interest of their 3 young boys and decided to live under the same roof, albeit in separate bedrooms. Darius was a good father, and he really wanted the best for them. Over the next year, the situation seemed stable, but on June 30th, 2019, everything changed. After being contacted by Darius' mother, Betty Levinson, deputies from the sheriff's office soon arrive at the Levinsons' home. Oleska Levinson allowed them to enter the home, and they expressed why they were there. Having not yet spoken to Darius's parents, Oleska seemed surprised to learn that Darius is feared missing. Deputies asked Oleska, "Is it normal to go a day or two without talking to him or having contact with him?" Oleska said yes. She said that even though they were staying in the same house, they both came and went as they pleased. Deputies asked Oleska, was anybody supposed to come and pick him up, or was he supposed to go anywhere? Oleska said, "I don't know. Even if he's supposed to, he wouldn't tell me." Oleska told the officers that the last time she had seen him was Friday evening. Then she went out with the boys to get pizza. When she came home, she didn't see him, but she assumed that he was asleep in his bedroom. They had separate bedrooms. As one deputy continues the conversation with Oleska, the other deputy steps away to see if Darius' work has heard from him. It was then that a disturbing lead came up. A couple of the people Darius worked with said they were concerned that Darius may have been thinking about self-exit. Concerns are mounting in Jackson, Ohio, regarding the whereabouts of 42-year-old Darius Gamby Levinson. Missing for 2 days, allegations have surfaced that he may be in danger. Darius' mindset was not right because of his marital problems. Darius' vehicle was still at the house, so deputies knew that he either got picked up by a friend or he left on his own on foot. Darius' 33-year-old estranged wife, Oleska Levinson, reiterates that it wasn't unusual for her not to see or speak to Darius for days. Her representations of the relationship was, "We might live in the same house, but I don't know where he goes. He doesn't know where I go." While the deputies hunt for Darius, Oleska consents to a search of the home. She was very cooperative. She allowed them to check the property. There was no indications of any foul play. The house was well kept. It was clean. There weren't any obvious stains. There weren't any indications of a struggle. Although Darius' car is accounted for, his phone is not. And there's something else missing. They discovered an empty handgun box, a 9mm semi-automatic handgun, and the whereabouts of that gun were unknown. Hoping to spare the children from the police presence, Darius' parents arrived from Kentucky. They were probably only at the house for 15 or 20 minutes to pick up the boys. At that point, they knew that something horrible had happened. At 7:48 p.m., the family's fears come true when the sheriff's office receives a 911 call from a neighbor of the Levinsons. He and his wife lived about half a mile away from the Levinsons on the same road. They were away running errands, and on their return, they observed something in the ditch line. They called 911, reporting that there's a dead body lying at the end of their driveway. It's lying in the ditch. Officers responded to the scene. The body was face up, and it was clothed, but what was strange was that the body was covered with grass clippings. Based on the size of the body, and the deceased didn't have any hair, they were pretty confident that the physical descriptions they had were consistent with Darius Gamby Levinson. Investigators brush off the grass to reveal the source of their victim's injuries. Grass clippings were placed on top of the face, over the torso, the legs. There was no question in their minds that someone was trying to cover up or conceal the body. They discovered what appeared to be a head wound. They suspected it to be a gunshot. There was no weapon in sight. Not seeing a weapon, that would eliminate self-harm. They were confident they were dealing with a murder. Detectives find evidence that suggests how the body got there. The clothing was torn, shredded. The body looked like it had been dragged. If his body had been dragged there, then there is a second crime scene. Darius Levinson's body is taken to the medical examiner's office while detectives scour the scene for trace evidence. Once they completed their investigation at the body location, they traveled up a half-mile to the Levinson residence. They asked Oleska to come down to the sheriff's office for an interview, and she agrees. Once at the station, investigators notify Oleska that they have found what they believe to be the body of her husband. Oleska's response seems strange to police. She asked the police if there was blood. She said, "Please don't show me any blood. Please don't. I'm going to pass out. I'm sorry." She refuses to identify the body. Oleska Levinson tells the police that she's squeamish. Oleska then shares her whereabouts on the night of Darius' disappearance. She told police that they were outside and they were having a bonfire and that at some point Darius went inside the house. She said that she last saw Darius around 9 p.m. She claimed he was sleeping on the couch, and at that point she had taken the boys to go get pizza. So Friday when they come home from getting pizza, they didn't see him. And they haven't seen him since. Oleska said his door was shut, so I assumed he's asleep. After that, Oleska claims she didn't bother to check on him and reaffirmed she had no idea he was missing. When police asked her for things such as her credit card to verify that she had made a pizza purchase, she offered up that information readily. She even provided a receipt. Then out of nowhere, Oleska drops a bombshell. Police asked Oleska, "Do you have a man that you are involved with at the moment?" Oleska said, "Yes, his name is James." "James? And how do you know James?" "He is my husband's ex-coworker." Oleska and Alan James Fussell, whom she refers to as James, begin their affair in October of 2017. They meet at one of Darius' work functions. They get drunk and they have sex, and their relationship starts from there. Oleska admits they continue their affair ever since that initial encounter. As the mystery unfolds, secrets are exposed. There is now this love triangle that they have to investigate. "Do you love James?" "Yes." Oleska said that James is going through a divorce right now too, because of her. Detectives now consider the theory that even though Alan James Fussell was technically still married, he may have had a jealous motive to commit murder. Detectives let Oleska go and shift focus to their new person of interest, Alan James Fussell. Once she mentions that she's having an affair, that's important information because that would give someone else a motive to commit the crime. Hours after a body is found that's presumed to be that of Darius Gamby Levinson, dental records prove what the family had feared. They confirm that it is Darius' body. They also discover that the bullet that entered the top of his head lodged in his jaw and was a 9mm, the same caliber as the gun missing from the Levinson home. Investigators begin to look into Oleska Levinson's confessed lover, Alan James Fussell. Police immediately put out a bolo. While police search for Alan, who now lives in Texas, authorities call Darius's family in Kentucky to give them the tragic news. Although tragic, the family felt some relief. They feared never knowing what happened to him. The following morning, investigators make the 4-hour drive to speak with Darius Gamby Levinson's mother, father, and the 3 children in person. Detectives ask the Levinsons about the affair between Oleska and Alan James Fussell. Darius told his mother, Betty, that he thought Oleska was having an affair. The Levinsons share that Darius believed the affair began in 2017, before the couple had separated. And apparently even after Alan had moved to Texas, Oleska devised a plan to keep their affair going. In January of 2018, Oleska and Alan decided it's a great idea to go on a cruise with their spouses and each other. So all 4 of them go on a cruise together. They weren't gone very long when Darius called Betty and said, "I'm coming home. Can you pick me up at the airport?" Betty believes that's when Darius found out Oleska was having the affair. In March of 2018, Darius filed for divorce. That's when things really got nasty. At the beginning, they both were allowed to live in the house, but Oleska went to the courts and said Darius was disruptive. So they made him leave the house. Darius was forced to move out, and for the next year, he agonized over not being able to be with his boys every day. She had custody of the children and was living in the house. He was living in small apartments, hotel rooms, wherever. At the same time, Darius was ordered to pay Oleska $2,000 a month for child support. They had all this money saved for retirement, and it all went to the divorce. So Darius was just emotionally wrecked. But things changed in February of 2019 when Darius learned from his young children that they were often alone for hours at a time. At nights, Oleska drove for Uber, leaving her children alone while she worked. That became an issue in the divorce, and is the main reason why the custody switched back to Darius. And Darius got residency of the marital home again. Oleska didn't have a steady job. She wasn't able to make it without getting financial support from Darius. She was sleeping in her car, and Darius said, "I can't let her do that. I just can't let that go on." Despite the nasty custody battle, Darius was determined to create a stable home for his boys, ages 10, 7, and 2. Darius went ahead and let her come back. There was an extra room in the house anyway. Investigators next speak to the 2 eldest Levinson boys. They recall sitting around the bonfire at 9:30 p.m. and hearing a loud noise when their parents were inside. But with it being so close to the 4th of July, they assumed it was a firecracker. The middle child, who was 7 at the time, he was thirsty. They had been sitting at the bonfire for an hour or two at that point, and he wanted to go get some water. So he goes up toward the sliding glass door of the house. What he sees in that moment is his father lying on the couch, seemingly asleep with a blanket or a pillow covering his face. His mom wouldn't let him go inside to get that glass of water. She told him she would get it. So he saw it. He just didn't realize it until later, when he put it all together that his father was probably dead at that time. The boys say after their mom took them to get pizza, they came home, ate, and went to bed. They never went downstairs to check on their dad and never saw him again. Back in Jackson, Ohio, a warranted search is underway at the Levinsons' home to find proof. As police were walking around the rear of the deck, behind the pool, they saw a large pool covering, like a tarp, bundled up, rolled up behind the decking. When they took the tarp and spread it out, there is a large void cut out. It's large enough for a body to be placed in it. They never found the missing tarp, but as they continued combing through the grass along the roadway, they discovered more fabric of what they suspected to be tarp fragments. Not only that, they discovered denim material, like from blue jeans. The fragments of fabric are found in a road exiting the Levinson property. Because of where the fragments were located, that gave the investigators an idea that there may have been some sort of mechanism used to drag the body down the roadway. The evidence outside suggests the murder was committed inside. One would think that somebody shot in the head would produce a lot of blood. When police were at the scene, they didn't see that with the naked eye. So they call in a forensics team to search for blood residue, but are forced to wait until a team can be dispatched from Cincinnati. During their canvass of the area, police question neighbor and winery owner Laura Charlton, and she shares a chilling last encounter with Oleska on the evening of June 28th. It was a Friday evening, a busy evening, and Oleska came over and went up to the tasting bar. Laura had gone over to her and said, "You look really sad. What's going on?" And she started about how Darius has the courts on his side. Laura's story paints a picture of a woman embroiled in a bitter custody dispute. She said to Laura that night, "The courts are really giving me no choice but to either take the kids and go back to Russia or to kill him." Laura's immediate response was, "Oleska, that's not the answer." Oleska left after that. It was around 8 o'clock. On July 1st, 2019, 2 days after the body of Darius Gamby Levinson is found, Jackson law enforcement suspect his estranged wife Oleska committed the crime. On the same day, investigators make contact with James Fussell to inform him of his former co-worker's death. He lives in Texas, so the officers called Fussell. He answers the phone and confirms that he and Oleska are having an affair. He was very forthcoming, and he even went on to tell police that he and Oleska had discussed killing Darius numerous times. She discussed shooting him. She discussed stabbing him. She discussed poisoning him. Alan claims he didn't think Oleska was serious, so he played along. Alan is adamant he was nowhere near the Levinson house the weekend of Darius' death. He says the last time he visited Ohio was 2 weeks earlier. Based on cell phone records, police believe him. Phone records confirmed he was in the state of Texas at the time of Darius Gamby Levinson's murder. Police asked Alan if he would be willing to record conversations with Oleska, and he said he was willing to do so. Alan's desire to further prove his innocence leads detectives to get a wiretap up and running and record the couple's call. On one call, Alan asked Oleska, "You said you were having thoughts of running away to Russia with the kids." Oleska said, "They are my kids. I can go wherever I want to go. I don't know what the divorce court's doing because now the other parent's dead, so I should just have custody." Alan said, "You're not trying to take the kids away, are you?" Oleska said, "No, not anymore at this point." The recorded conversations fail to capture Oleska confessing to Darius' murder, but something she says gives investigators an idea. They devised a sting operation worthy of an international spy movie. Oleska has been asking James to come to Ohio to be with her. Police decided that they would fit a rental car with recording devices and a hotel room for Alan so that he could have some privacy with Oleska. They hoped to get some incriminating statements from her on record. So on July 4th, Alan Fussell flies into Cincinnati to assist with the sting operation. The plan was for them to go out to dinner and then go to a hotel room in the area. Several detectives were on scene at the hotel to be close by, in case something happened. But as soon as Oleska saw James Fussell, she started touching his body everywhere to see if he had bugs on him, any wires. She is suspicious of him right away. When the couple arrives at the hotel, the sting operation collapses. After about an hour or so, Alan freaks out, leaving the room, saying, "I'm not doing this anymore." While he was out of the room, Oleska destroyed 2 of the cameras. It was over $1,000 worth of recording equipment that she destroyed, and wrote a lovely little note for the detectives. It said, "All Americans are bleep." With the sting of bust, detectives confront Alan James Fussell. It was evident to them that he had told Oleska that they were being recorded, that police had set this up. Alan denies it. Police take Alan back to the sheriff's office. He agrees at that point to take a polygraph examination. While they're doing that, Oleska shows up. A deputy speaks with her in the lobby. He had put a voice recorder in his pocket to record the conversation. Oleska said that they are looking in the wrong place. Deputy said to Oleska, "There is no other suspect, Oleska. Everything points to you." Oleska is allowed to leave the sheriff's office. Meanwhile, her lover, Alan James Fussell, takes the polygraph test. During the polygraph examination, Alan was asked, "Do you know for sure who killed Darius Levinson?" And he responded, "No." And the result was that he was not telling the truth. They confront him with the fact that he failed the polygraph. Alan gave it up at that point. He admitted that he received a phone call from Oleska on Friday night, and she told him, "I did it." According to Alan, Oleska said she had found the key to the safe where Darius kept his 9mm handgun. Oleska told him that she had done it while Darius was sleeping on the couch and that there was a large mess. Alan tells her to get rid of the body. She tells him, "I'm going to take the boys to get pizza and then I'm going to take care of this." Alan Fussell was taken into custody after taking a polygraph. At that point, it was evident that he had lied to the police about his knowledge of the murder. They charged him with conspiracy to commit aggravated murder. The next morning, police arrive at the Levinson home and arrested Oleska. Oleska was charged the next morning on July 6, 2019 for aggravated murder. As Oleska sits behind bars, detectives get word that the forensics team has made a startling discovery. They used Blue Star, a chemical agent that reacts to hemoglobin in the blood, even blood that has been cleaned up, in the area where the police believe Darius Gamby Levinson was shot as he lay on a couch. The forensics team spray the floor, and it lit up brightly. Right then and there, it confirms where Darius Gamby Levinson had been murdered. On July 6, 2019, Oleska Levinson and her lover, Alan James Fussell, both sit in jail for the murder of Darius Gamby Levinson. Oleska was believed to be the shooter. Alan Fussell lied to police about his knowledge of the murder and his prior discussions with Oleska, but police were certain that he wasn't physically in Ohio to help commit the murder. For her part, a search of Oleska's internet activity in the weeks leading up to the murder showed a clear level of premeditation. On June 17, 2019, 11 days before the murder, she was Googling about poisons. Then, on the day of the murder, June 28, 2019, she is on her phone, doing a string of searches about how to illegally get children over to Russia. They have a divorce hearing in a few days. She must have felt like the world is closing in on her. She must have been feeling desperate. She either had to take the kids and flee without Darius knowing and without his permission, or kill him. Investigators believe Oleska put her plan into motion on the night of June 28th. She leaves the winery around 8 p.m. She starts a bonfire in the backyard with her sons. Darius goes inside the house. She leaves the bonfire at some point that night, goes inside the house, goes upstairs, gets the gun, comes downstairs, and she shoots Darius in the head while he is lying on a couch. She then covers him up temporarily with some blankets and pillows. She takes the boys out to get pizza. She puts the boys to bed like nothing happened. Alan James Fussell's confession helps authorities theorize what happened next. She cuts out a section of the pool tarp. She rolls his body onto the pool tarp, attached his body to the back of the van, drove him down the road either as far as she could get him or as far as she dared. She used the grass clippings to try to conceal his body. And then Oleska spent several hours to clean up as best she could. Prosecutors assumed Darius' phone and the gun were disposed of under the cover of night. They don't have the murder weapon, but you can paint this picture that the living room was filled with blood. Somebody cleaned it, and she was the only one there. In July of 2019, an Ohio grand jury hears the charges against Oleska Levinson and Alan James Fussell, and Alan catches a break. They declined to indict Alan Fussell for the charge of conspiracy to commit aggravated murder. They instead indicted him on obstructing justice, and that was based on his lies to law enforcement. In exchange for his testimony against Oleska, Alan James Fussell is sentenced to 6 months in jail. Oleska is indicted for first-degree murder. Alan was the state's star witness. After several COVID-related delays, Oleska's trial concludes on April 29, 2021. It takes a jury less than 2 hours to reach a verdict. Oleska Levinson was found guilty and sentenced to 30 years to life. The family expressed relief. The satisfaction is that justice was done. But for a family that has lost so much, the verdict comes as cold comfort. It's a heartbreaking situation, and the kids are the ones who will suffer most from it. They could never have imagined that the once perfect life, the life they had worked so hard to build, would end so tragically. Darius is remembered as a kind and gentle soul. His parents were proud of him, and they miss him every day. They are at a loss as to what he could have done differently in the divorce situation. Oleska Levinson is not eligible for parole until 2052. She will be 65 years old. Darius Levinson's parents are raising their 3 grandchildren. Thank you for being with me. If you are interested in more in-depth investigations into the most perplexing crimes, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. What are your thoughts about this case? Please share them with us in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe.